The 2017 Mercedes-AMG E63 S by Posaidon. There may be a new generation Mercedes-AMG E63 S in town now, but just because that's the case, that doesn't mean the previous generation model will just fade out into the sunset. Noted Mercedes tuner Posaidon seems to think that there's still some untapped potential left in the old AMG E63 S, and like any tuner worth its salt, Posaidon set about unlocking it with a new program that delivers a staggering 1090 horsepower, more than what today's lineup of hypercars are capable of. Wrap your heads around that number for a second. 1090 horsepower for the Mercedes-AMG E63 S. Sure, the mid-sized performance saloon is capable of handling that much power, but not without a lot of help, or at least in this case, a bigger engine up front. That's the scope of what Posaidon has done. Not to mention the work Posaidon put in, which speaks to the kind of upgrades it's offering for the Merc-AMG. It's admittedly not for everyone, but for those who prefer supercar levels of power out of the E63 S beauties, the German tuner's power offering is about as high as it's going to get. And in case it's a little too out of reach for a customer's sensibilities, Posaidon does have other options on the menu, specifically upgrades that only bring out 850 and 920 horsepower, respectively. I suppose the output numbers, in this case, are relative, but then again, even an 850 horsepower AMG E63 S is going to be a whirlwind to drive. Continue after the jump to read more about the Mercedes-AMG E63 S by Posaidon. Exterior. If you're getting this new offering from Posaidon, prepare yourselves for the reality of not getting any exterior upgrades to go along with that gargantuan engine upgrade program. The good news is that there is a way to go around that because Posaidon does actually have exterior upgrades on offer, as we saw in the 850 rupees kit. Remember this program? Note, photo of the Mercedes-AMG E63 850 rupees by Posaidon. The kit featured in that program is largely made of an aerodynamic kit whose sole purpose was to shave as much weight off of the performance sedan. Posaidon addressed that by fitting carbon fiber bits and pieces into the body of the E63 S, including a new front bumper, mirror caps, rear spoiler, diffuser, tailpipe trims, and a new hood with inlets that help get more air into the engine. The tuner also offered a set of 20-inch ET37 and ET45 ADV.1 alloy wheels as part of that program. There's no word yet on whether the tuner will allow this body kit to be included with its new engine upgrade program, but the possibility is there, so there's a point in asking. Other options are available. If you want to spare yourselves the complicacy of Posaidon's kit, you can opt for a few alternatives that will net you similar results, at least from an exterior point of view. Revaport, for example, has its own aero kit on offer. It's not as all-encompassing as other aero kits for other models, but it does have the important bits in it, including the front splitter, side skirts, trunk spoiler, and rear diffuser. All these items are also made from carbon fiber, so there are some weight-saving elements that come with it. Note, photo of the Mercedes-AMG E63 SRZE 640 by Revaport. Mercedes offerings are nothing to sneeze at. A far safer option in this regard would be going to Mercedes-AMG directly to get your cosmetic and aerodynamic needs in order. The German automaker has plenty to offer, ranging from items like the AMG Advanced Lighting Package, the Sun Protection Package, or the Premium Package. Interior. It's the same story in the interior, at least as far as this kit is concerned. There are no interior upgrades available here, but again, Posaidon has the capacity to make improvements, as it showed in its 850 rupees program. Granted, the modifications there largely involved removing the rear seats entirely, leaving only the frames in place. It's not what you'd consider a posh upgrade, but it is something worth looking into, especially if you're interested in getting a similar setup for your AMG E63s. Should you wish for something a little more on the luxury side, Mercedes-AMG is likely your best bet because other tuners like Revaport only offer items like aluminum paddle shifters. Mercedes-AMG has plenty of options to consider. If you want a certain level of sophisticated personalization, Mercedes-AMG is where you go. In addition to offering a menu of packages for the AMG E63 S, the automaker also has the AMG Performance Studio ready to cater to your needs. If you want exclusive colors for your performance sedan, the Performance Studio has plenty to choose from. Same thing with the premium materials for the interior, be it fine leather, Alcantara, carbon fiber, or the occasional wood trim. If you have a creative imagination, you can go to AMG Performance Studio and see how far that imagination is going to take you. There's a good chance that you won't leave disappointed. Note: interior photo of the Mercedes-AMG E63 with AMG Performance Studio. Drivetrain. The undercard for this program has been a dud at best, but thankfully, the main event is worth the price of admission. Posaidon's engine upgrade program is massive, and I mean that in the most awe-inspiring way imaginable. After all, 1090 horsepower 996 pound-feet of torque is a loud and ringing endorsement of what the AMG E63 S is capable of, provided you put the right tools in place for the car to be able to handle all that power. That's the important thing to remember here, because Posaidon went over and above simply giving the sedan's 5.5-liter V8 engine a clean software tune. In order to extract that much power, the tuner actually bumped the displacement of the engine all the way up to 6.5 liters while also upgrading the pair of turbochargers that are part of the engine setup. Posaidon accomplished the latter by increasing the boost pressure of the turbochargers while also installing a high-capacity intercooler that can help accommodate the significant increase in power that the tuner was aiming for. Even the car's 7-speed transmission was aggressively modified to be able to handle the power gains, which you know by now is significant in every sense of the word. Altogether, Posaidon managed to extract an eye-gouging 1090 horsepower and 996 pound-feet of torque out of the bigger and more potent turbocharged 6.5-liter V8 engine. No mention was made on how the power gains affect the car's performance times, but I think it's safe to assume that it can accelerate to 60 miles per hour way faster than the 3.6 seconds it takes the 585 horsepower stock model to achieve that speed. Below 3 seconds is a certainty, so if I'm going to put a number on it, my estimate would be somewhere in the 2.5 seconds to 2.7 seconds range. Regardless of the number, the results should make the AMG E63 S blindingly fast. Top speed is a little harder to predict because Posaidon actually modified the car's speedometer to reach 380 km per hour, or about 236 miles per hour. That's a big step up from the sedan's stock speedometer limit of 320 km per hour, 198 miles per hour, so expect the Posaidon-tuned AMG E63 S to clear 200 miles per hour without so much of a sweat dropping on the ground. How does this engine upgrade program compare to past programs for the AMG E63 S? It's a fair question if you for sure, but don't expect other tuners to offer upgrades approaching this kind of power. Revaport, for example, only relied on the far easier method of remapping the engine's control unit. It's still the same 5.5-liter V8 engine with the same turbochargers and the same mechanical parts. As a result, the tuner was only able to get 640 horsepower and around 600 pound-feet of torque out of the V8 engine. It's a long way from what Posaidon is offering, but it is a far easier to control, which is a good selling point for some buyers. No mention was made too on performance times, but expect the Revaport-tuned AMG E63 S to cover 60 miles per hour from a standstill position in about 3.4 seconds before maxing out at about 190 miles per hour, provided that the speed limited is disabled. If you prefer something in the middle between Revaport and Posaidon's respective programs, Performaster has its own software-centric upgrade that results in an output of 705 horsepower and 737 pound-feet of twist. It's still a long way from Posaidon's work, but it's still significant enough to add 145 horsepower and 206 pound-feet of torque from the sedan's stock power figures. Likewise, look for similar improvements in performance times from this program. The tuner didn't indicate how much the improvements are, but given the output it was able to achieve, a 0 to 60 mph acceleration time of 3.2 seconds isn't out of reach, as is a top speed that breaks past 200 miles per hour. Obviously, the wide range of output figures don't make for a compelling comparison test in the traditional sense. But owners do get a better idea of what's in the market for them. If they want over-the-top power, Posaidon's the call. If they want something that just gives that extra rush without overdoing it, Revaport is a good call. And if they want something in between, Performaster has a good one for them in any event. Check out the table below to see how these three kits compare to one another. Note: estimate. Suspension. With this much added power thrown into the AMG E63 S, suspension upgrades are definitely required. Heck, these modifications might as well be the most important ones in the program because, without them, the 1090 horsepower sedan might as well be a death trap. Fortunately, Posaidon understands the importance of a beefed-up suspension that can handle all that added power, hence the installation of a lower, uprated coil-over suspension in front, as well as the lowering of the factory rear air suspension using what the tuner calls the appropriate electronic protocols. Pricing. Some of you are probably asking if you can afford all these upgrades. It's a fair question to ask because Posaidon certainly wasn't understating it when it promised supercar levels of power. Unfortunately, no mention was made in the press release on how much the program is going to cost. In light of this, our typical protocol states that the best way to get a hold of an actual figure is to contact the tuner directly. That way, you get a clear understanding of what you're going to get and what you're going to have to pay to get it. Competition. Mercedes-AMG E63 856.0 by Brabus. For its size and esteem, the Mercedes-AMG E63 is actually a magnet for tuners. One of the most famous ones in the game is Brabus, which presented a program for the four-door AMG Saloon back in 2014. Don't let the years that have gone by fool you because the kit still packs a very mean punch. Like Posaidon, Brabus actually increased the displacement of the engine from 5.5 to 6.0 liters to accommodate the improved output of the sedan. The tuner then made more tweaks to the engine, helping it attain an output of 850 horsepower and 848 pound-feet of torque, enough to propel it from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 3.1 seconds on its way to a top speed of 217 miles per hour. Read more about the Mercedes-AMG E63 856.0 by Brabus. Mercedes-AMG E63 711 by Wheels and More. Wheels and More is another tuner with a well-chronicled history of tuning the Mercedes-AMG E63. It showed as much back in 2015 when it installed a concoction of software upgrades on the car's V8 engine, helping it increase its output to an impressive 700 horsepower and 811 pound-feet of torque. The increased output reflected in performance times too, as the Merc-AMG was able to sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 3.3 seconds to go with a top speed of 190 miles per hour. Find out more about the Mercedes-AMG E63 711 by Wheels and More. Conclusion. I get the appeal of having a 1090 horsepower Mercedes-AMG E63 S in my garage. It's probably the most powerful tuned version of the sedan that I can ever get my hands on, so those who share that sentiment aren't crazy for wanting to have one of their own. But as far as I'm concerned, 1090 ponies is a little too much for me, especially for a car like the four-door Performance Saloon. I don't have anything bad to say about Posaidon's program because it is impressive on so many fronts. It's just not my cup of tea because, quite frankly, I don't know what I'm going to do with that much power at my disposal. Give something like 700 to 800 horsepower and I'll be happy with those numbers. Love it. Ungodly amount of power. Posaidon's a tuner you can trust more than what meets the eye. Leave it. It's a little too much for my taste. I can get something that's up to my liking elsewhere. Plenty of competition.
If you liked this video, please share your thoughts in the comments below and don't forget to hit the subscribe button.